Hey guys, welcome back. I'm David and this is E-War Guitars. Have you ever wondered how to do a scarf joint in a guitar neck? Well, if you have, stick around. I'll show you how I do it. But first, I'm going to clean this mess of a shop because it's a disaster. See what a beautiful day it is out there? It's awesome. Okay, so what we got to do first is we got to lay out on the neck blank where we want the cut to make for our scarf joint. And this is how I do that. So this is my template that I'm going to use. As you can see, it's 6 in a line, and these pair of lines here is going to be my nut. And I want the nut to lay on the flat part of the fingerboard here, right up against, the flat part of the neck, right up against the fingerboard. And that line is going to be the end of the fingerboard. And my nut's about 3/16 wide, so that's the other end of the nut right there. So I basically want to make my cut at this line. So what you got to do to figure out the angle and everything, I measure from the end of my headstock down to that first line, and it's just a little bit under 1/2 inch. Okay, so or a little under 7.5 inches. So I'm going to go 7.5. I'll actually probably give it a little bit of room. So I'm going to mark 7 3/4 here. Okay, which I'm going to do right here, 7 3/4. Then you want to add 1 3/4 to that number. Okay, which is right here. I've already got my mark, which means my overall length of where I make this cut is going to be at about 9.5. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I take that 9.5 inch measurement. I hope you can see this in there good. And I mark it. I'm going to square it across there. And that is where I'm going to make my cut. Okay? Now, if I had a nut laying here, I'd show you, but that nut is basically going to lay on this side of that line. All right? So now, what I'm going to do is I've got my little handy dandy angle finder thing here, okay? And I've got it set at 13 degrees, somewhere thereabouts. I'm going to mark this, okay? So that goes right there. Now I'm going to draw this. I'm going to show you how this works out. So there's my angle, right? Now, my finished headstock is going to be 1/2 inch thick. So I'm going to mark 1/2 here. I'm going to mark 1/2 over here. And I'm going to draw a straight line between those 2 points. Right here. Now, this piece right here that I'm going to cut off, first I'm going to cut it here along this line on my bandsaw, and I've got this jig right here. I'm going to clamp it onto that jig, and I'll show you that in a second. And then I'm going to take this remaining piece, this whole piece, and I'm going to saw it down. I'm going to resaw it down right here, so it's going to be 1/2 inch thick. I'll actually probably saw it a little bit thick, and then I'll sand it to the final thickness. And then if you look here, now this piece is going to get flipped over and glued back on top of this piece. And I'll get into all that too. But I want to show you right here, this is going to wind up, this side right here is going to wind up being the side facing up. It's going to be the same side as the fingerboard or the fretboard. And as you can see here, where it meets here is going to give me 7.5 inches, which is going to be just a smidge longer than I'm actually going to need to for my headstock. Okay, and then that's going to give me something like oh, I can't remember. Let's see here. I'm going to pull out this end. I think that should basically be the spot right there. And that's going to give me something like 22.25 inches left over, which is where my fingerboard is going to lay, my fretboard. My fretboard is going to hit right about there. And it also gives me enough length at the end of the thing to get up under that first P90 pickup hole. So anyway, I'm going to get this set up over my bandsaw, And I will, when I get over there and get set up, I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to explain, go through that step and explain that too. So here I am over at my bandsaw. Got my little jig rigged up there. I've got the board clamped on exactly the right spot. There's a little T guide under the bottom that'll go in the guide slot of the bandsaw. That's a nice wide blade. It's a 3/4 inch wide blade, and I think it's 3 or 4 teeth per inch. It cuts this type of thing really well. So I'm just going to slip it right through there. I do all my headstocks at 13 degrees. I know some people think that's too much, but it works for me. You can see those knots in there. They're going to get cut out. They're not going to be in anything. Now I've got to take that piece I cut off and thin it down for the headstock. And I'm going to cut that. That's probably cut in 9/16, and I'll sand it down to half. But then I'm going to put a zebra wood veneer on top too, so I'll wind up with about a 9/16 inch thick headstock when it's all said and done. Okay, so I'm set up over here. And as you can see, I've clamped the headstock piece onto the neck piece, and I've got 3 good clamps on it. I paid special attention when I'm lining these pieces up to my little strips of wenge and curly maple here to make sure they line up, because when we flip this piece and glue it on top, we want that those center accent stripes to go right up real nice in the middle. And I've also set the distance this way of this piece so it planes out really nice with the so both angles plane out right on each other. And I check it both diagonally and straight through like this. That's a really nice bandsaw, and it's got a really good sharp Timberwolf blade on it, so it's a real nice cut. But you still want to fine tune it with this sanding block I have here, and I found the best way to do this is by hand. So that's what I'm going to do. I just have it down. So I'm sanding with that little block I made, and that's, I think, a 60 grit belt on there. That's a 4x24 sanding belt, and I just sand, and I keep changing the angle I'm sanding at. I twist it around because to avoid any repetitive mistakes I'm making in my sanding. So I'll sand it on an angle from the top, and then it'll come up from the bottom, and I keep going back and checking it too. The idea is to get the 2 pieces to plane out absolutely perfect with each other and get rid of all the bandsaw marks too. So all you want is a really nice smooth plane that has those 60 grit sanding scratches in it, which I think helps you know, for surface area for the glue. So now once it's all sanded and it fit well, then I'll flip it back over. I'll make sure I'm aligned really well with those center accent stripes. And I always like putting in a couple of indexing screws. So I put them down here along the side of the neck, which is outside of where any of the finished wood is going to be. And I put in a couple of 1 1/4 screws, and when I go to glue it up, it won't slide around on me. So once I've got that done, this is my jig I set up, and it's set on a 13-degree angle too, that I clamp my headstock to. First I glue it up, put the screws back in that I just set, and then I glue it up into the jig. And that jig helps everything to stay aligned, and it just works well. I used to not use the indexing screws, which was a real pain, even on the jig. But with those indexing screws, and then you put it on a jig like that, it clamps up really nice. Everything stays straight and looks good. This is my last opportunity to make sure that those center accent lines are going through straight. Once I'm satisfied, I just clamp it up. Well guys, thanks for watching. That's how I do my scarf joint. And as you can see, I've gotten this neck a little further along, and I'll be bringing that to you over the next couple of videos. I'm going to bring my videos out each Thursday, and it'll be the process of building this guitar. I want to take a second to say thank you to those folks that have subscribed to my channel. It really makes me feel good, you know, working these videos and you have no idea if anybody's going to see them or watch them or whatever. And I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet and you dig this sort of thing, how about you give me a like and subscribe? I'll have another video out next Thursday, and we look forward to seeing you back then. Y'all have a good one.